Welcome back to the Get Louder podcast. We got a very special guest, a personal friend of mine. Woo! He's a doctor. He's an endo. He has a PhD.
That's right.
And for those who don't know what it means to be an endo, that means a lot of freaking schooling. Yeah. Uzo, introduce yourself, please, for the people who don't know who you is.
Thank you guys so much. I love the energy, but let me actually do what you asked me to do. My name is Uzo Mba. I'm an endocrinologist. I am an MD PhD. I am a recent graduate of the Scripps Clinical Endocrinology Fellowship Program, and I've been a practicing endocrinologist now for the last 2 years, and a physician now for the last 7. So it's been a hell of a journey. I'm really, really excited to be on the podcast with you guys.
Thank you, man. We're happy to have you on here. For those of us who don't know, what is an endocrinologist?
An endocrinologist is basically a hormone doctor. We have hormones that control all sorts of things, from the temperature of your body to the way your body handles sugar to how tall you're going to be. And we most general endocrinologists try to cover it all. Don't get me wrong, there are ways to subspecialize, and some of these can be very niche fields, but a lot of endocrinologists try to gain a broad expertise in all of these areas, and a lot of them may specialize in treating diabetes, they may specialize in treating bone disease or thyroid disease or any variety of institutes, and there's a lot of research involved in it and a lot of really cutting edge medications. And so, we are we're the guys who get to stand on the forefront of a lot of this stuff, and I'm really excited about the job that I get to do.
Man, that's so cool. Hey, I want to be 6'1". What what can you give me?
All right. If you were like 14 and gave me that, I could help you out with that.
Interesting.
But,
really?
Oh yeah, but
For real?
Let's say we're 14.
Yeah, so at 14, then we would. So at 14, and sometimes you see this. And it's obviously where the resources are plentiful. You can see people who have children that maybe they're worried about their short stature and whatnot, and some of them have genetic conditions or congenital issues, and they would benefit from getting a little extra boost of growth hormone during their teenage years. And you want to make sure you do that before their growth plates fuse, usually somewhere between the ages of 15 and 18 for girls, 17 and 20, 21 for boys. And so it allows them to get a little more linear height during their puberty years. And so, if you were interested as a teenager or a child, and there were some concerns about your stature, you could certainly get some doses of growth hormone, provided there was a clinical condition that we were treating.
Well, what kind of, let's say the treatment is you're 5'8", you want to be 6'1".
That's the diagnosis.
14.
I have a condition. I'm 5'8", I want to be 6'1".
I would say if you're a teenager, then we can help you. Once those growth plates fuse, you are what you are at that point.
Yeah.
So in our late 20s and early 30s, the die is cast, if you will.
Yeah.
So not sure how much we can help you, but I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of really excellent experiences in my training and now in my practice to kind of give me some insight into just how much can be done for people when it comes to that, and really how life-changing it can be when people have these problems that may seem frivolous or more about quality of life than actual life-saving stuff, but you would be surprised how debilitating some of these things can be. And people who think that they have a psychological condition, and it turns out that really they have a thyroid problem. People who thought they were just suddenly they turned into this whole different person, and really what they have is adrenal insufficiency. But nobody ever knew. And then once they get diagnosed and they get treated, it's like they go back to being their normal self.
Wow.
And so those are the kind of things that I really like seeing, and those are the kind of things that are really gratifying. And don't get me wrong, the day-to-day can be somewhat monotonous, but you still get a few of those interesting cases, those things that hey, I've been to these many docs and nobody's kind of figured it out. I don't understand why my blood pressure is so high. I don't understand why I'm gaining weight. I don't understand why I'm losing weight. I don't understand why and sort of getting to try to work your way through and figure out a mystery just by kind of listening to people talk and and getting a good idea of where they've been and where they're going. It's a really cool profession.
So when people see you, are they usually being referred by their general doctor?
Absolutely.
As it, because I would never know. Oh man, I need to go see an endocrinologist.
Right. Exactly. It's like nobody ever sits down and be like, my pituitary is acting up. I got to kind of figure that out. But but in truth, most times people see us. The general doctor has to kind of give them an inkling that, or has to get the idea that there may be a role for an endocrinologist in their life and in their and with whatever medical condition they're dealing with. And I got to say, I really, and most specialists do, we do kind of we rely pretty heavily on, well, at least in the current medical structure that we have, we rely really heavily on referrals from primary care practitioners who have to be really thorough in a really brief amount of time, who have to try to identify problems quickly and figure out, do I have the expertise to deal with this on my own, or should I send them to do I send them to somebody who I feel like has a better expertise in it than I do?
Right.
Because don't get me wrong, all physicians train as generalists
Right.
and then learn to specialize learn to specialize. While while I was a resident, while I was a fellow, I was doing general work as a geriatrician, which old people.
Right.
And
Geriatric,
so, and so you do that kind of work, and you kind of see that there's a broad spectrum of stuff going on, and the best way to kind of figure out how to work that is to understand that your experience is going to be really broad, and then you learn over time, and with time and training and really experience, you kind of learn to become more specialized.
Right.
And it's really cool because there are absolute titans in the game that I've been able to learn from and work with, that really they started the same way. They were generalists, and then they found their niche, whether it was bone disease or obesity or any number of things.
Right.
And so it's very, very cool.
Do you think that if the general public knew more about the type of, I guess, things or conditions that endocrinologists treated, that you wouldn't have to rely so heavily on primary care doctors? Or would people come straight to you? Is it like, do we need insurance to see you, I guess, at the end of the day?
In my current practice, yes.
Yeah.
So, though, but no, in all seriousness, no, you don't necessarily need insurance to see us. But like we said, we don't get 100% referrals from primary care doctors, but like I said, the way the system is set up, that is predominantly how we see patients. And sure, if more people knew what endocrinologists did, or if what endocrinologists did or what our expertise was, they may be more inclined to seek us out. And those people who get really interested in their conditions or have a propensity for self-diagnosis do tend to seek us out on their own. I mean, usually it means that they ask their primary to send them to an endocrinologist. But
that's funny. That's funny that you say that, because I'm starting to lose my faith in GP and in the general practitioner, because it just feels like they act like they know it all, but you're like, I feel like I'm having this problem, and you're just like, oh, just rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Take some Tylenols.
Okay,
that'll be $100.
Allow me to stand in defense of the general practitioner. Now, we're talking about internists, family medicine docs, people who sort of try to take care of you from in some cases from the cradle to the grave. Other times it's usually through your entire adult life, and they can't afford. They have to be miles wide, and in some cases they can be several feet or even several yards deep. But most times it's miles wide and inches deep. So so a really good GP knows what they don't know. Like the best ones I've ever seen, they have a full recognition of a broad spectrum of human disease and human health, and they can treat a lot of stuff on their own, but they also are very clear about where the limits of their expertise are.
Right.
And so my experience, training as an internist, working as a geriatrician, and saying like, hey, I can do this. And when I know that I can't do this, I start looking for other people who can help it. And so yeah. If you have somebody who, if you feel like your GP is like, hey, just rub some dirt on it, yeah, they probably are just like, meh, you're not symptomatic enough, or your stuff doesn't look off enough for me to say, oh, I got to have my hair on fire about it. But you know, when they see something that kind of hits the alarm bells for them, you know, the best ones just are like, all right, let's dive in. I can do this, 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 and this, and here's my limit. And once we get to this point, I'm going to send you to the hematologist. I'm going to send you to the oncologist. I'm going to send you to the urologist. I'm going to send you to the endocrinologist. And, you know, and so all of them have their different practice styles. And I've been very fortunate to see and train. And even now, even my GP, this guy, I feel like he orders every test he knows how to order every test under the sun. And he's like, yeah. He's like, do this. I had a hangnail once. Oh, well, you got to get this, and this, and make sure that we're not dealing with anything. Yeah. And I, for one, love that level of vigilance.
Yeah. So do I.
Like, you ever dealt with like a doctor? You're like, yo, doc, I'm dealing with A, B, and C, and they're just practicing their golf swing.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. What do you want? You want Xanax? What do you want?
And so don't get me wrong. I feel like there's there are doctors that are awesome, and there are doctors that are good, and there are doctors that are not so good. But in the same way that there are levels and degrees of expertise and levels and degrees of quality at any profession. You could say the same thing if you were sitting in somebody's law office, and
it's true.
And if they're putting on their gloves, getting ready for their tea time, they may not necessarily make you feel like the most important person in the world.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times. You're not even seeing the doctor. You're seeing the nurse practitioner who has the same amount of training. They're just as qualified, but you're not seeing even the doctor. You're seeing the nurse.
And I think that, and it's interesting because whether it's a nurse practitioner or physician assistant, you recognize that they have a high degree of training, and with time and experience, they usually gain a level of expertise that allows them to practice semi, if not fully, independently.
Right.
But I don't know. I haven't quite yet put my finger on it. I don't know if it's social or cultural or whatever it is, but there is something about I'm going to see the doctor.
Right.
And I've seen it. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it in my practice, and people are like, no. You're great, but I want to see the doctor. And so
it's definitely social and cultural, but we have a perception that they have a higher level of experience in education.
Right. And
that's the assumption.
2 years more.
Right.
2 years more of education.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It depends. I think because in terms of actual schooling, I think most MD programs versus NP programs, and most NP programs are either 2 or 3 years. MD programs tend to be 4, and then after that, and the thing about being a nurse practitioner is that you usually get your practical training, your clinical work done on the front end because you have to be a nurse before you become a nurse practitioner.
Right.
And so they usually have a lot of practical training, and then as a nurse, and then they come back around for the added schooling of becoming a nurse practitioner.
Right.
And so they add that on the back end, whereas as a medical doctor or as an MD or a DO, you get your schooling all up front.
Right.
Then you get your practical training. Then you get your clinical training at you starts in the second half of your schooling, and then it continues on through after graduation, through residency, any subspecialty fellowships, and so that by the time you get to where I am, you have done at least 4 years of medical school. In my case, I did 4 years of medical school, an additional 4 years of a PhD. I did 3.5.
But who's counting?
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? When you're sitting there doing research while the people that you started with are already graduated, you start to count.
Well, because you have 2 PhDs, don't you?
No, I have a master's and a PhD.
A master's and a PhD.
And so when you do, so it's 4 years of med school, 4 years of PhD, 4 years of a PhD. 3 years of internal medicine residency, 3 more years of an endocrinology fellowship, and so by the time it's all said and done, and keep in mind, I worked after I graduated from college. I worked in clinical research. I worked as a phlebotomist in the hospital. Like I was doing stuff before I was like, you know what, maybe this med school thing is right for me. So by the time you come around to it, it's been 10 years, 12 years of 10, 12, 14 years of postgraduate training.
That's a lot of homework.
It is. It is so much homework. It is so much homework. It's so much homework. It's so many group projects and PowerPoint presentations.
I look at my
and a whole bunch
kids.
of
I'm
stuff,
like,
you're
think about school. They go into school. I'm like, man, homework sucks. Just so I just do not envy
Right?
them at all.
Right? I got a 3-year-old now, and they sent something home like, oh, it's a project you guys got to do together, and I was like, it's preschool.
Have fun with that. Dad's going to bed.
It's like, if you ain't said a word,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, it's like God bless her. I love my wife so much, and she was like, yeah, all right, we'll do this, and we'll do this, and then to their credit, like I came home the following day, they had this beautiful beautiful construction paper thing laid out, and it was very cool, and I was very, very happy. My son seemed very happy about the whole thing, and I was like, I can't believe they gave you homework. This is friggin' weird. I figured I had like at least 3 more years before we had to start worrying about that, but apparently we're here now.
You're like, because I had planned on brushing up my multiplication and my division.
Exactly right.
I forgot all that.
Yeah, it's like it's one thing. It's one thing when we sitting around on a Saturday to be like, oh, you know what? If you have 3 blocks and I give you 2 more blocks, now you got 5 blocks.
Right.
That's fine. That I can do. Daddy's got you there. Right. They're like long division. I was like, I know how to do this.
Right.
I know how to do this.
But
exactly.
It's been 20 years.
But it's been a while since I've had to try to do that without a calculator, and then I was all right.
Right.
But yeah, no.
In your field, do you have experience with like those tests where like if I wanted to find out like everything about my body and like the types of foods I should and shouldn't eat and like all that kind of stuff based on my genetic makeup? Do you have any experience with those?
I have experience with them.
Yeah.
I hate them.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I do because
tell us why.
Because it feels like a grift. It does because don't get me wrong. I think that there's obviously a role for personalized medicine. There really is. But I think that there are some. But I think ultimately there are some fundamental truths about what people should and shouldn't do. And yes, you can say, hey. I can give you a genetic profile and say, hey, you may be more predisposed to heart disease. You may be more predisposed to diabetes. But you can also gather that from a family history as well. And so I think that it feels like there's a limited role. And I say that with the knowledge that, there may be a time down the road where I'm like, no, you know what, let's do that because, the frontiers of personalized medicine and being able to take a genetic profile and then apply it to your life, that's real and that's coming. It's not here yet.
Right.
And I often worry sometimes if somebody says, hey, you know what, my genetic test says I'm a fast metabolizer of methyl tetrahydrofolate. You don't actually have a disease, but you worry that you do that, and then all of a sudden, you're deciding that there's certain medications that you can't take, or that you got to mainline folic acid just to make sure that all this stuff is out. And you're like, do you really? Is it really having a substantial effect on your life? Or if you don't have that second hit, if you don't have that radiation exposure, if you don't have that carcinogen exposure, is it ever going to really mean anything for you? Probably not. But yeah, and so I was like, I don't love them, but I also recognize that that in my continuing education and experience, there may be a time where I may need to rely on them. But right now I don't use them. What I end up seeing a lot of is people who have been to another practitioner who gives them this great profile and says, hey, this is what you look like, this is what you metabolize well, this is what. If I was an allergist or an immunologist or a very specific type of gastroenterologist, that'd be my whole bag. I would love those things because then I could really start to work with you and say, okay, here's what we should do to optimize this aspect of your health. In my line of work, and we do work in metabolism, and we do talk about diet, and we do talk about exercise, and we do want to make sure that you're doing those things that you should do. But right now, I'm still relying on sort of like basic fundamental truths about how the human body works. Knowing that for most people, operating at a calorie deficit will have you losing weight. Right. For most people, increasing protein and decreasing carbohydrates is a good way to combat insulin resistance. For most people, that there may be a role if there may be a role for surgery, there may be a role for hormone augmentation, there may be a role for, there may be a role for hormone suppression, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. And understanding what that clinical picture looks like, I still think I can gather a lot more from simply talking to somebody than getting $1 million profile test. So
$1 million.
Yeah.
Well, no, isn't that what Dana White? That's what he did. Like he took this test, and then the guy, friggin' jacked guy, doctor. I didn't do too much research on him, but he's like, yo, Dana, like based on your lab work and all this stuff. You have about like 10.4 years, and then you're gonna die. You know what I mean? And then like it freaked them out. And now you look at him. He started fasting.
He's like, I gotta stop doing Fuck It Friday.
Fucking Friday, and now he's like ripped. He's like fast. He's actually one of the reasons. Like I don't know if you saw that. I mean, you're not on social media, man.
Not really.
But we gonna get him on social media. He's gonna be on social media soon.
He's like,
be on.
I'll tell you. I can tell you why. I can tell you why my reticence about social media. I am. The thing I believe about myself is that I am what you call good in the room. I don't know how much of I am kind of weird and shy about sharing so much of myself on the internet. However, I love talking to people.
Yeah.
So the podcast makes it really, really
exactly.
easy.
Yeah.
Like
killing two birds.
So and that's the part that's weird about me. Not a huge fan of just sort of putting myself out there in the ether.
Yeah.
But if I sit down in front of some people and some friends and say, hey, we're going to talk and we're just going to record the thing. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll sit down for an hour. I'll sit down for 2 hours. It'll be great.
Right.
but to sort of be like to sort of take the person that I am inside of a patient room during a visit and kind of just throw it on the internet. It scares me a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I only because, well, one, to quote Erykah Badu, I am an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit.
Yeah.
but also because, I always try to be very, very careful about doling out medical advice because you give advice to a person. Because you've had a chance to have a conversation. You've had a chance to develop a profile.
Right.
You've had a chance to treat them. So the advice that I give to you for your health may not be the same advice I give to you for your health. But if I just put advice out there and somebody decides that it could work for them when it really can't, am I helping? Or am I spreading misinformation?
Let me push back. And I didn't want to turn this podcast into that, but I'll push back because most people don't even know they have these issues. Most people don't know what a thyroid is, what a pituitary gland is, what hormones are, testosterone, estrogen, PCOS, whatever it's called. They don't know these the metabolisms and A1C stuff. So when you give them, like, it might be general because you're not diagnosing anyone.
Sure.
You're just saying, hey, if you're suffering from low libido and hair loss and this and that, it could be low testosterone.
I mean, you had just mentioned that you're talking about being a generalist and the fact that I deal with things that most people, if you operate at a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. Most people, you said most people a lot.
I did. But, and
there are fundamental truths.
There are.
And there are telltale signs. And it's not about diagnosing people online. It's about informing them like, hey, this could be it, but it's not up for me to tell you. It's up for you to go to your doctor and ask them.
That's true, and I think that the place where I come into it is that I think about my role as a physician, right, and say, okay, you know what? Can I contribute to medical education, scientific education, general information, general education of the people around me are the people who come in contact with me? And, I think about that and I come up against the idea that as I've put myself out there as a physician, right? As somebody who does treat and diagnose and say, it could be this. And I also recognize the fact that, 95% of the people who hear that it could be this will hear it could be this. 5% of the people will hear it is this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It is this. It has to be this.
Yeah.
And then I've sent them down a road. And for me, that's the part where I don't like the idea. Well, I am not yet comfortable with the risk of having a name or reputation tarnished because of perceived misinformation. And admittedly, that may just be my hang-up about social media. I probably have nothing to worry about because I know that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of physicians that sit in front of a mic and a camera that they set up by themselves in front of their house and just go.
Right. Well,
and I'm like, all right, maybe I could be that guy if I'm confident that I'm putting out the good information. And don't get me wrong, I don't tell people if that's not true.
You know what we found, and well, I'll tell you what we found, and I'll go back to something else. What we found is you get your colleagues, you know, they man, I'm seeing Uzo more. Man, Uzo, like you're always on top of mind now. It's like more your colleagues, like, yo, Uzo, man, that was a great video, man. And then so you end up finding that more than anything. You're sort of holding yourself back because and it's the same way like when we're creating videos, we're like, we gotta create marketing videos, and it's very marketing is straightforward, but it's very complex.
Sure.
And we have to like say something general. You just gotta make 100 videos.
Right.
Sounds
it's
simple.
like it sounds simple. Like, yeah, you have to make 100 videos, but you also have to learn a little bit of like there's a lot more like lighting,
and there's technical direction.
Yeah, and then there's like high production, there's low production, and then it comes down to so it gets complicated. But it's easier just for me to be like, you need to make 100 videos because within those 100 videos, you're gonna find out how to talk. You're gonna find out what to say. You're gonna fumble the first 50 videos anyways.
Yeah.
And then I want to go back to something else. Is some of the people I like to follow for like nutrition and exercise advice. What I like about them is they'll be like, "Hey, this is what keto is bullshit. If it works for you, it's only because you're in a calorie deficit. It has nothing to do with anything else besides being in a calorie deficit. And if you don't believe me, here are the papers that are peer reviewed. And so if you don't believe me, here's the peer reviewed papers." From these places that I respect, not just 3 people, thousands of people.
Exactly, and it's truth, and so those are the kind of things where that's the kind of stuff I'm comfortable in a room saying. I'm comfortable in the medical state saying, and again, like I said, I recognize fully that I am not going to be the first endocrinologist on the internet to dole out medical advice. I'm going to be probably the millionth and first to do it. But it's my hang up, and I think with time and experience and getting used to sort of having these same conversations with a lot of people in the room, because it's one thing when you're a fellow and you're sitting in front of a room of other physicians and people there, and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to give you a talk today about underactive thyroids or thyroid cancer or something like that, and I'm like, hey, let's talk about this, and we go through the slides and we talk about the history and we do all this we do this cool stuff, and 45 minutes later, everybody knows that I know a lot about the thyroid. But you know what? Everybody else in the room knows a lot about that. And so the part for me that I really like about my job is taking that lecture and making it something digestible
for us people, for us folks.
Yeah, for my patients and the people who come to see me, and that's the part about my job that I like, and it's weird. And the part that I recognize as fully weird is that I can't quite make that logic leap from the room to the camera to Instagram.
So let me tell you my perspective and experience of that. So I thought you were going to say the same thing I was going to say, but I follow a lot of nutrition people as well because I'm super into it. And 90% of the content that I see from whether it be doctors or health specialists or whatever is in a podcast format or a teaching format. I almost never see somebody talking to the camera, looking at it, and delving out facts. At least for who I follow. Who I see is conversations between people or a teacher teaching something, and they're recording it and they're posting clips. And it's like, I get so much good little tidbits of information, and it's almost always in this format because I think that they're probably in the same position as you. I don't want to sit and just say all these things. I'd rather have a conversation about it because what it allows me to do is what you said. I get to relate to who I'm talking to, and that allows me to create more of a personalized response to who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And for you, I think that would be, you hit the nail on the head. You like doing a podcast. If you were to do social media, if I was you, I would do it via that medium.
Okay. Yeah. Man.
Well, I want you to do social media because you're the best, man. You're the best. Look, man, you got all these other people. I'm like, man, Uzo, man, what are you? Man, I'm pissed off. I have to watch this freaking person right now when I could be watching you.
All right, you know what? I like that. I appreciate it now, man. But that's pretty cool, man. Like, listen, Jay, I like you gas me up, man. I appreciate it. makes me feel good. It's cool. But yeah, no, that's awesome, man. But
so wait, hold on. So I wanted to ask you real quick because we talked about keto.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now fasting. I said I wanted to fast 3 days. I saw Dana White do it. He's in great health now. He was fat a few years ago. Yeah. He's in great health, healthier than ever. Probably on like 400 milligrams of testosterone a week. Who knows? But I don't know. But regardless, he's looking good. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so we all understand that it's calorie deficit. What does the research say about fasting? He's been trying to get me fasting. Him and his cousin trying to get me fasting for months now. Yeah. I fasted before in the past.
Tell us.
And yeah, is fasting legit, or is it like bullshit?
No, fasting is very much not bullshit, and I'll tell you this, and it goes kind of the same for any sort of most diet plans. At the end of the day, the key is sustainability and reproducibility. If you know that you can do fasting, whether it's for 2 days, 3 days, or 7 days, what ultimately they find is that you, as long as obviously you hydrate and you hydrate and you're able to get some good rest and sleep, basically the first 12 after the first between hours 4 and 12 of your fast, you're gonna be hungry. You're just gonna be hungry. Right. And then at a certain point, your body starts getting used to utilizing your stored energy and starting to burn that off. And what most of my understanding of the research is just that you essentially get to a point where you start losing, you start burning off that energy. You're able to kind of sustain yourself with essentially lower zero caloric fluid intake, and you have the excess in you, skinny or fat, tall or short. You've got the energy in you to sort of proceed with the fast. And then the key is, how intermittently do you want to do it? We found that, and I'm here to tell you guys now, it's a distinction with a very important difference. What we call intermittent fasting is not really intermittent fasting. It is time-restricted eating.
I thought you were going to say skipping breakfast.
No.
All it is skipping breakfast.
But no.
Just put a cool name to it.
But functionally, Jay's right. All you're really doing at the end of the day is skipping breakfast. Skipping breakfast with time-restricted eating, you're either skipping breakfast or skipping dinner. And what are you really doing? Say it with me, Jay. Calorie restriction.
Calorie restriction.
Right. That's what that is. It's caloric restriction, and then depending on the macronutrient breakdown that you put in there, then you can determine, well, okay, am I going to be promoting glycogen burn? Am I going to be promoting fat burning? And then depending on when you time your workouts, we have plenty of research showing that working out in the morning is better for weight loss, energy loss, and sleep quality than working out in the evening. And we find that those time restricted eating windows can work, but they've got to be 8 hours or 6 to 8 hours. If you start pushing it to 4 hours, you're going to make yourself sick. If you keep it at 10 hours, you're not necessarily going to get the full benefit from it. And then in terms of true intermittent fasting is I don't eat for 2 days and then I do caloric intake on the third day. Or I don't eat for 3 days and I do caloric intake on the 4th day and the 5th day, and then I don't eat for another 3 days. And so
I like that.
So that sort of fasting plan, when of course coupled with intake to help restore you, but not to help restore you, but not necessarily to help to push you past where you started, then that fasting plan will then continue to sort of burn you off, because all you're really doing with fasting is utilizing stored energy. Is glycogen in your liver, adiposity where you've got it to burn, And that's really all you're doing with the fasting. So in short answer, is it bullshit? No.
What about the process that I think I always say this word wrong, but it's like autophagy or something? Autophagy.
Yeah.
Like, can you tell us about what's taking place?
So autophagy is when broken down, its meaning is eating oneself. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about utilization of stored energy.
Right.
That's what, when you kick into autophagy, you're promoting your body to utilize stored energy for fuel.
But is it true that in that process, your body starts essentially killing off bad cells?
Because you're utilizing all those stored energy, you can essentially, yes, you can maybe kill off bad cells. Autophagy was thought to be a key component of cancer prevention and cancer treatment, or in some cases, there are some processes related. There's some cellular processes related to autophagy that are thought to slow down or reverse the aging process.
Right.
And so there are a lot of different things that can do that. And there are even medications that are associated with promoting autophagy. And it's interesting because there have been some interesting things about growth hormone suppression, or even use of old school diabetes medications like metformin that can promote these processes in terms of that. But my cell biology background is it's been a while since I've studied it, but in terms of what it can do, like what are we really doing? We're talking about starting a process where your body's utilizing its stored energy,
right.
And in the process, perhaps yes, destroying cells and destroying cells and things that are not useful for you.
Is it true though? Like when you're in a calorie deficit, you'll start losing muscle faster than fat.
Not necessarily, and part of the reason why that happens for people is just it depends on where their calories were coming from, and then what it is they're using. Because ultimately, when you start operating at a calorie deficit, what does your body do? It starts using up stored glycogen. All right. If you're keeping the muscles activated, if you're keeping them working and active, then no, you shouldn't be losing muscle more than fat. What ends up happening is that you may lose water in your muscles with fasting.
Make them appear smaller.
Make them feel smaller, make them weigh less, but you're not going to lose actual muscle tissue.
Yeah,
you may lose so you lose mass insofar as that you lose water and maybe interpolated fat within the muscle, but you're not losing muscle. And I think sometimes people worry that, okay, you know what, my biceps went from being 28 inches to 27 and a half inches.
I hate when that happens.
And I hate that. Sorry, I mean the only person here the only person who got big bombs like that is Jay.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
For me, it's like I went from being 17 inches to 16 and a half or 15 and a half.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, so you're not. So I think we have to be very careful about it, because you don't allow the cosmetic. You don't want to necessarily allow the cosmetic to get in the way of your actual health. And so even when I have my patients who are trying to lose weight, I tell them initially, especially in the first 6 months that we're trying to lose weight, don't pay attention to the number on the scale. Just you're only going to make yourself upset. 6 months may be a little bit, maybe 2 or 3. But it's like, don't pay attention to the number on the scale. Pay attention to how your clothes fit.
Yeah.
Are your clothes fitting different?
Right, exactly.
If the
Because
numbers
you're gaining
are
muscle, to your actually the weight balance and
exactly.
everything like
that. Your body composition is changing.
Right.
Right.
So my biggest fear when it comes to the fasting, especially long periods, I want to do it. Just man, I feel like eating's such a I get pissed off. I gotta take a break to go eat. I gotta stop what I'm doing to go eat. That's annoying to me. You know what I mean? I gotta. But so
You don't have to do that when you're fasting.
But you don't have to do it when you're fasting. But what it worries is as an entrepreneur, as someone who's running a business, has to run and for those who understand running a business, there's a lot of moving parts, and you sort of have to be sharp, and you have to have energy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what worries me is fasting. Will it take away the energy? Will you just be sort of dragging your feet all day?
Well, why? If you've got the energy in you already, and your body can utilize the energy you've got stored, why would you not have the energy? What are you actually missing, right? What you're missing is essentially the hormone surge, the dopamine surge of eating. What you're missing is that hit from eating that makes you feel good. That kind of peps you up, that gets you rolling. But from an energy standpoint, you physically have the calories inside of you already to burn.
Right.
The question
That's a big misconception, right? Is that if we don't have food inside of us, then there's nothing to burn for energy.
That's not true. Don't get me wrong. You know, nobody you don't starve yourself, obviously,
Right.
but the reason why people can fast, the reason why people can fast, even just colloquially, just I can go a day without eating. The reason why you can do that is because we've got it in us to lose. We've got it in us already. Are you concerned that you'll be sharper? Are you concerned that you won't be as sharp when you're fasting? That may be it. But if you really are concerned, then what is it you're missing from your eating? Is it caffeine, or is it sugar? Is it just a good night's sleep, or is it sugar? If you've got the rest of the stuff lined up, then fasting is good. You shouldn't lose mental acuity. You shouldn't lose mental acuity with not eating unless you truly are having like a hypoglycemic episode. Right. In which case maybe you will, but it should be rare because, like I said, you're going to be hungry. Your body's going to ask you for food, and essentially if you push past those first 12 hours, that like 4 to 12 hour mark with the fasting, then you should not feel that anymore. Mm-hmm. The question is, will you be able to do that?
So a couple things. One is I heard, on TikTok,
Trusted source.
Indeed.
that the brain is fueled on sugar. Yeah. Like you are sharper when you have carbs in your system. You are sharper when
you got the sugar inside of your liver.
Yeah, your liver
already
makes sugar.
Yeah, it's already there. Your sugar has glycogen in it, and it'll break it down for sugar, and it'll feed your brain.
Okay, and another thing is, if you're missing the dopamine that gets you that high, that gets you like excited about life, is there a drug you can take to give you that
Molly.
high while you're missing the food?
Honestly,
a lot of drugs.
Honestly, it depends. Depending on how strict you want to be with your fast, just drink a coffee. Just make sure just drink a black coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, like you can get the caffeine and it'll give you that hit. You'll get a crash from it later, but you can do that too. It's I don't claim to be a fasting expert,
right?
But I do understand how that works, and what you're talking about with the sharpness feeling and the decreased acuity. What you're talking about is the initial 12 hours of your fast. And what you're talking about is that feeling that makes me feel, that being hungry feeling. Right. That your body gets used to live in a certain way. Right. Even for me, like just the other day, for a variety of reasons, I had my lunch at 1, and I didn't end up having anything to eat until about 9:30 or 10 o'clock for a variety of reasons. And so I was 6.5 hours into not eating, and I was like, I'm hungry. I don't feel awesome at all. I need to eat. I don't feel like I'm super sharp. I'm kind of tired. I'm a little hungry. I need to kind of make sure that I get some fuel in me to kind of get me going again. If I was really focused on fasting, I would recognize that I could probably just drink some water and go to sleep and be okay. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I would have been. What did I do? I had my dinner. I had my dinner late, but I ate my dinner, but I ate it late, and I ate it, and so I kept it rolling. But that's the feeling that you're thinking about. Yeah. That feeling is just hunger. That feeling is hunger, and your body sort of setting up what really is an evolutionary drive to make sure that you stay upright, active, and alive. Sometimes I try not to put too fine a point on it, but your body can sometimes make you feel like not eating is akin to, oh, I'm dying and I got to figure out a way to kind of keep my energy up. Mm-hmm. But at a point you keep not eating long enough, and your body's like, okay, well this is our state right now, so let's use the energy we got to kind of keep you up and rolling. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same kind of, like, you see a similar thing with people who go distance running, like, you get 5 miles in. You get 5 miles into a marathon, and you're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die." Mm-hmm. And you hit that 8th mile, and all of a sudden, you get that runner's high, and it carries you through for the next 10 miles, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is great."
Yeah.
The process is still similar. The fasting is like an endurance exercise. Mm-hmm. Then that first portion of the endurance exercise is going to feel like hell. And then once you push past it, once your mind and your body sort of understand that you're not dying and that you've got the energy to continue pushing onward, off you go.
Yeah.
And so that's why people can do the 3-hour fast. And let me put it like this: if you talk to Dana White 6.5 hours into a fast, I'm sure he's not the most pleasant person to be around at that point.
Yeah.
He may want to knock your head off at that point, but because he's hungry. But he also recognizes, hey, if I have some of this water, I relax, I find something to occupy my mind, I'll keep rolling.
Right.
And so I think that's sort of the principle behind it. You know, it's evolutionarily sometimes, you know, your body makes you feel like you're starving and dying,
Yeah.
like literally, like.
But you're not.
Food, but
you're not dying.
But you're not.
You just gotta get
But you're
past. You need to get past the first 12 hours, and then you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. You have a question?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. Okay, you're an endocrinologist.
Yes.
You deal with obesity and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
How detrimental is childhood obesity in the adult years? Because I'm hearing stuff like, for one, like I'm hearing stuff like BPAs, like young men are, you know, when they're obese, they're having testicle shrinkage, and then they're having lower testosterone. And if you're obese before you're like 20, like as a kid, a teenager, then you sort of like suppress your growth or whatever, and you're having lower testosterone. You're also hearing, which is no good, and then and once you gain the weight, you literally have like almost no chance of ever not being fat in your adulthood life.
Well, let's see what he has to say.
So what do you have to say? How detrimental is childhood obesity really?
You know, what's the best way to go about this? So when we talk about childhood obesity,
And I mean, like you're a kid,
Yeah.
but then also like as a teenager.
yeah. So somebody who is basically somebody who is obese from childhood and then and continues to be so through their developmental years and into adulthood.
And should it be considered child abuse?
I think that, you know, I won't delve into making childhood obesity a crime, but I will say that, you know, it is a concern, particularly in areas where, you know, maybe we're under resourced and the nutritional value of the food's not great. Then we worry about those kind of things. We worry about childhood obesity, but in truth, childhood obesity kind of strikes me as sort of the ground floor of where things can be changed if they're recognized. Okay, and so does it mean that we got to put kids on diets? No. Does it mean that we should give children? But it obviously means that we shouldn't give children unlimited access to sugar. Unlimited access to sugar.
Them kids need to be on diets.
They need to be on diets. Like
a diet is just food. It's like you need to be eating real food.
It's just like if you eat 2 cups of rice, you're gonna have a cup and a half of rice, and then when we stop losing weight, we're gonna give you a cup of rice.
Yeah. So I'll put it like this. You're not gonna put a kid on keto, obviously, but my point is that my ultimate point is that if we're talking about childhood obesity as this like epidemic in the United States or in the
is it not an epidemic though?
You could say it about obesity generally.
Obesity is an epidemic. How come?
You could treat it. You could say it about obesity writ large. And yes, you know, as a nation, the United States has never been heavier than it is now, and we could have said the same thing 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
Yeah, and you know the idea and the idea behind efforts to it is just that with the tie of obesity to and not even obesity, really more when we talk about waist circumference, if we want to be super technical about it, but when we talk about obesity and its ties to heart disease, joint disease, you know,
all the other things that can come
and
everything,
sleep apnea and hypertension and all these other things. I kind of make my approach to obesity the same way I make an approach to most other conditions, which is, all right, do you have conditions related to the underlying problem? You know,
which is what?
So if you are obese and you have sleep apnea and you have hypogonadism and you have hypertension and you have lower back pain or arthritis or things like that, those are all conditions that will be improved when you lose weight.
Right, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have a BMI above 30, and like 30,
Which is 75% of America.
right? 75. It is not 75.
It's 74.6, bro.
It's not.
To be technical.
It's not. It's over 30 is not 75. It's actually closer to about 43. If we're
almost half.
Yeah. If it's
yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And then in some parts of the country. Yeah, we are talking about 60+ percentage of the population.
That's crazy. No, that is the South. And when I went to the South, I thought the South was. I like the South. It was pretty cool. It was like wholesome and all that stuff. It felt like there's trees and stuff. I'm from San Diego, so there ain't too much trees over here. You know what I mean?
Fair. It's like, listen, you got to get outside the city.
You was about to tell us something.
Yeah.
You didn't get to finish his thought.
No, but it's okay.
sorry,
I wanted
it's
to-
okay.
Go ahead,
So,
go ahead.
You were gonna say what I want to know is what you think the underlying reason for obesity is.
So no, well, I'm just saying, like if you treat obesity or adiposity as a condition, as the condition, not as something where there's an underlying problem, but as the condition. Sure, there are underlying root causes to obesity. There are plenty of them, but 90% of obesity is multifactorial. Some people have a little congenital condition where they don't get full and they just eat.
So you're telling me that those people that have that congenital condition are eating vegetables
No.
all day long, but
No,
they
no,
just
no, no,
eat
no.
so many vegetables that they get obese
All right.
because they don't know when they're full.
You know what? That is a good point because I do have that.
Yeah,
I have that little trigger that doesn't tell me I'm full. And I ain't getting full off of carrots.
And that's the thing.
I'm getting full off of Cali burritos, cakes, Snicker
Right, these
bars.
sound like excuses.
No. And so I don't mention it by way of excuse. What I really mean is that they're multifactorial.
I can't stop eating this lettuce.
Yeah, and so we make light, but in truth, there are things like that. And the nice thing about it is now that there are strategies and medications to help fix those kind of things. But most people, if they have a multifactorial obesity, then we don't treat obesity as a moral failing. We treat obesity as the disease that can be fixed. Because then if the obesity is causing the heart disease, if the obesity is causing the hypertension, if the obesity is causing the arthritis, then you fix the obesity and the rest of that stuff gets fixed.
Well,
Right,
oh, sorry.
100%.
And so when you
For sure.
and so when you have that, the best thing that we can do for ourselves as a people is not try to stigmatize people for actions that led to where they are, but instead look at, okay, what can we do to make a change? What can we do to fix the problem? Because if somebody comes to me and their BMI is above 30 but they don't have adiposity-based chronic diseases, then what am I really doing other than making the number on the scale different? Because here's the thing, it's possible, it's not common, but it is possible to carry what somebody would believe to be excess weight, but not have adiposity-based chronic diseases that I talked about.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. If you suffer from them, then the obesity is the problem and it should be fixed.
well, let me ask you this: how many 45-year-olds do you know who are above 30% body fat who aren't suffering from some of those conditions? Exactly.
Can I count them on more than my fingers and toes? If I think real hard about it, yes, but the majority of the people, I'll put it like this, I work in a self-selecting population. If you're coming to see me regarding obesity, you have these other problems.
Right, that's a good point. That is a good point.
If you're not going to see a doctor while you're obese, maybe it's because you don't have them, and I'll never see you.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I know some people who are they're fat, and you could tell them, hey, have you thought about losing weight? And they're like, look, I like my hamburgers, I like my hot dogs, I like my beer.
Yep.
I'm not gonna change. I don't care if I die early.
Yep.
Right.
Every time they get sick, they're like, I'm not going to the doctor.
They're the die fat and happy crowd, and
all power to
I
them.
actually respect those guys a lot more.
and so for me, like I said, I think I've told you this before in passing, but it's like I don't pull people in off the street and say, hey, you got to fix this.
They come to you.
Yeah, they seek me out.
Right.
And so they seek out our help. They're already looking for the help, and I just say, hey, here are the strategies that we can use to help. And so yes, do I see myself as sort of a crusader for helping cure or manage obesity? Not really. But do I see myself as somebody who says, hey, if somebody's looking for that help, if somebody has these problems, can I help them fix them? Absolutely.
And that's fair. And that's very fair. You're not here to change the world. You're here to help the people who want to be helped.
Precisely.
And I guess what I was saying is like, what can we do as a society? And then you're not here for that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so, but you know what? If we want to talk about the broader question, sure. You know what? Are we too fat as a society? All the metrics say yes. Okay.
Yes.
And then what can or should be done to change it? Sure. You know, simple things. Should we do if we lived in a better, not even a perfect world, if we lived in a better world, we would have easier access to healthier foods. You know, the things that are good for us would not be more expensive than the things that are bad for us. You know, but in our society, we put a premium on health. We make you pay for it. You know, hell, like in my darker thoughts, I think about the nature of my work. We make you pay for it, and it's cheaper in this country to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
It is, and I mean the short term.
Right.
In the short term.
Because I feel like
in the long term.
Sorry, go ahead.
It is obviously much more expensive.
Right.
But it's hard because, you know, what do you tell the person who's like just sort of moving through from day to day and is like, you know what, I like this fast food. It makes me feel good.
Right.
I get full and I feel fine.
But that's only because they have these food scientists, and we've seen the movies with them.
Yeah.
And they're not putting drugs into hamburgers, right?
No.
But they're combining the salts and the fats and the and the textures, and they're making it. How can I make this hamburger 50 different ways and test them and see which one just gets people like really going.
Addicted.
Yeah. And that's how you become addicted. They're not making you addicted. They're making you addicted to your habits.
Right.
You know, when you think about the McDonald's French fries, all of a sudden your mouth starts salivating, and then you're like, now you can't get it out of your head, and then it's everywhere. I'm talking about like, I can't escape it on social media. I'm like, don't want to see this ad. Don't want to see this ad. Don't want to see this ad. Don't want to see this ad.
It can feel pervasive.
Like it's and it's not like it's easier to get off drugs than it is to get off fast food, because if you choose to get off drugs, you can get away from it. You can't get away from fast food.
Exactly. It's not. It's, you know, there's not a cocaine store on every corner.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So, you know, if you decide
There's a person selling it on the corner, but not in the store.
Exactly. But you can't walk into one of like 17 different establishments and say,
Exactly.
hey, you know what, I'd like an 8-ball, and so that,
Right.
I say it's a little too much cocaine here for an hour. Now we'll get away from that.
Yeah.
But you know,
But it could help you lose weight.
Anyways.
But yeah, no.
What about the idea of our food becoming more and more like synthetic, if you will? Like if you compare like the 50s, you know, up until that point into now, the amount of food that we had that is genetically modified with things like high fructose corn syrup, and to your point with about how can we make this food more addictive? They're not technically putting drugs in it, but from a certain standpoint, yes, they are. When you take some certain elements like high fructose corn syrup and making it so isolated, this dopamine that goes straight to your freaking brain and makes you so addicted to it. Like, what's your opinion about like how we make food now compared to how we used to?
And how does it affect your endocrine system?
Oh, okay. So, you know, in terms of that, what we're really talking about is, you know, providing large surges of insulin and promoting weight retention and insulin resistance and maybe even diabetes down the road, and all that stuff is pretty well documented.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, you know, food science and, you know, how food is, you know, again, just engineered with salt, sugar, and fat to make sure that it is as tasty and, you want to take that next bite, or you want to take that next sip, or you want to
Hit.
take, yeah, exactly. And so that, there's actually a great book, Salt, Sugar, Fat.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the author. It bugs me, but if I remember, I'll bring it up. But they document how the food science industry does prepare and engineer processed foods to do that. And I don't think that some of it is a misnomer in terms of comparing things to the 50s to what it is now. Because keep in mind, the life expectancy in the 50s was still shorter than it is even now. Yes, people weren't as fat. Yes, but the life expectancy was shorter because more people were dying from heart disease. More people were dying from all these other things. And so could we blame it on the food? Could we blame it on the habits? Because our understanding of what food does to us has changed, but the level of processing of food has also increased in that same time frame. And so I think that we have an opportunity now in the modern age to be healthier, to eat better. And we know that, that slab of bacon that you and your family had every day in the 50s is not really the wave, because it's going to increase your risk for heart attacks and strokes long term. But at the same time, have we eliminated bacon as a society? No, we just know that it can't be large amounts every day.
Yeah.
And so what I think we're moving into as a society now is the era of portion control. All right, the era of caloric restriction, the era of, okay, I understand that the way my granddad used to eat in the 40s and 50s is not the way that I can eat now.
Right.
And that the way my dad ate in the 70s and 80s is not the way that I can eat now. But because all of that's happened over the course of our time, up until what I think is going to be really the next 5 to 10 years, is that the quality of the food, interestingly enough, has gotten better. The level of processing has gotten greater, and our capacity to make things that are ultimately unhealthy for us has grown. And all of it has sort of gone together in parallel.
Yeah.
And now we're reaching a tipping point where between our understanding of obesity, our understanding of the consequences of it long term, and then medications that are coming out that functionally work as a way to say, hey, slow it down. Limit the portion, improve your body's sensitivity to the foods that you eat, and the weight will come down.
Yeah.
And the heart disease will go away, and the stuff related to adiposity will get better. And so, coming about the long way to your answer is, yes, it feels sinister, the level of processing in our food, but the knowledge has increased. We have it there. And I think we're right at a tipping point, especially in the United States, where we're going to start seeing people either accidentally or on purpose, or by dint of having the popularity of stuff like of Ozempics and Wegovys and Manjaros of the world. Like with all of those things coming, what do they really do for people, right? Especially for folks who are trying to lose weight. If you have the profile that fits the drug, what we're really talking about is a chemical portion controller. What we're really talking about is an insulin sensitizer. What we're really talking about is something that helps you functionally do all the things that we sort of loudly joke about when we talk about putting the fork down, right? That's what they're helping people do. And I, for one, am a big proponent of better living through chemistry. So you know what, if the same people who make the golden rice that can make sure that, kids who only have that to eat don't have nutrient deficiencies because of it, also can put the high fructose corn syrup into your cereal and make sure that you eat 10 bowls of it before you get full. There exists the capacity for great good and great evil. For lack of a way to say, for lack of a better way to say it. And then the onus, and I feel like the onus is on me as somebody who, tries to help treat people, to help them navigate these kind of things. And so that's the part where I'm like, all right, where are we with it? And are we really in a place where And are we really in a place where that the only thing we can do is to tell people to put the fork down? And it's part of the reason why when you see, and I don't know if you guys were going to ask about this, but I like talking about it anyway. If when we see people who are taking these medications that are really popular now and helping people lose weight, you know, when we see it get praised or we see it get demonized or whatnot, and it's like it's neither of those things. It's a drug, right? It's a drug. The same as an opiate, the same as Tylenol, the same as weed. It has ways you can use it that are good for you. It has ways you can use it that will hurt you. And the only thing that we have a responsibility to ourselves is to make sure that we are not hurting ourselves with any of this stuff. Because for every article and every 10 people you see who say, "Hey, I found this thing. It feels like a miracle. I took it, and everything in my life got better." You know, there's going to be another 10 people who said, "I thought I found this thing. I thought it would be a miracle, and everything in my life is substantially worse because I started doing this." And and the only difference between them was it was right for this person, and it's not right for that one.
Right. And I agree. I'm not like anti-pharma. Like
No.
I'm like if it makes your life better, I think you should take it. You know what I mean? Like if you're obese and Wegovy helps you, take the Wegovy. Nothing else is working. If you're bipolar, probably take the bipolar medicine.
Exactly.
If you're got anxiety, maybe take the anxiety medicine. I don't know.
But the problem with that is that just like food or anything else, depending on what it is, people abuse it or they become addicted to it and they can't control it. Like you saw with the opioids.
Yeah, but just because there's a capacity for abuse,
Right.
We shouldn't allow, because I'll put it like this. Oh, how do I say it like this? There are, on a regular basis, hundreds of millions of active prescriptions for opiate narcotics.
Right.
There are not hundreds of millions of opiate addicts. There are lots of people who are being helped by it, and a minority of those people who are using it that are abusing it. And you know, in the grand scheme of things, we allow the availability of these things to be available so that they can help as many people as they can. And the opportunity cost is the propensity for abuse. The opportunity cost is for inappropriate use and potentially really bad consequences because of it. And it's not, I try not to sound super callous when I say it, but I really do ultimately believe that, you know, we can't allow the mistaken use or the abuse by a minority of the people to affect the availability for the people who really could use it and who could really use these things. And so that's the part where I try to find the balance. But like you said, like you said, it's tricky. And there is a propensity for abuse and there is a propensity for it. And that is where responsible use comes in. That is where having these things done under the auspices of a trained medical professional are really helpful. A patient today was interested. I had a patient today who was interested in being on a weight loss medication. She showed me her phone and she showed me an article of a woman who died taking that same weight loss medication. And she said, "I don't want to use it. I think it's going to kill me." And I said, "Well, no." But and it was like, and you know, we ended up having a conversation, and you come to realize when you read the article, it turns out that the person who died taking this stuff was using it wrong. They were just using it wrong. They were trying to do too much too fast, and it hurt them a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where, you know, it's easy to say, hey, you know, we can't do this because somebody's going to hurt themselves with it. But by that logic, nobody should drive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but you know, we got to. So I try to find. So I'm not trying to be super circumspect about what you asked me,
Right.
but I do try. I recognize that there's a lot of nuance in it, and you know, we talk about, you know, medicine as medicine, and I like the idea that, you know, there's also opportunities to use food as medicine as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and when you're talking about finding, you know, natural sources, superfoods, healthy nuts, and things like that, these are all stuff that you can use to help kind of activate your health in the same way.
Right.
And the only question is, do you have knowledge and access?
Right.
And if you do, then you can do that stuff. And if you don't, then you won't. And so, yeah. So maybe I should do a podcast where we talk about.
Yeah,
Man, we could go. Man, there's so
crazy
there's
deep,
so
man.
much we could go into. Like, so every endocrinologist, they tend to have like a special. They specialize in hormones, but everyone sort of has like that's within the specialty. There's a specialty.
Sure.
You know, that's why you have these like men's clinics. They specialize in testosterone optimization. You have diabetes clinics. You know, they specialize in diabetes.
Yep.
What do you find yourself being a specialist within the specialty?
Right now, I am trying to keep myself as a generalist, really, in the truest sense of the word. But if I'm going to be super duper honest about you with it, I find that I am becoming more specialized in the spaces of diabetes, obesity, and to a degree, reproductive hormone, reproductive or men's and women's hormone therapies. It's the places where
Men to women?
no,
Like men turning into women?
men and women.
Oh, men and women.
Like
So-
to help them have babies.
Yeah.
Help people have
reproductive stuff.
Yeah.
And reproductive stuff. Yes, and there is a degree of transgender care in what I do as well. But also what we talk about is men suffering from hypogonadism, women dealing with the ravages of menopause. You know, these are things that I've gotten more accustomed to practicing with, and you know, am starting to hone my expertise in as well. And so those are the things that kind of excite me when I get a chance to do them. And honestly, any generalist who is not like just a ACEs diabetician is like, okay, you really you decided that that's not what you wanted to do, because that diabetes is out there, it's everywhere, and there's so much of it to treat.
Yeah.
Man, I have a question for you. You're an endocrinologist. You have access to all the hormone drugs. How are you not like 250 pounds, just pure muscle, jacked, huge, got a forehead up to here?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest reason why I maybe don't engage in some of that, like, for lack of a better way to say it, that testosterone culture is, to be honest with you, the people who I respect in this field and the people who I've learned the most from, they don't really get down like that. Like, they don't. And
You don't need it.
and that's the thing. Like, I've had myself tested. I have looked at my life and sort of given myself a self-assessment and allowed my practitioners to do their assessments on me, and there's not a need for it.
Yeah.
You know, and not that there's not everybody wants to, fill out their shirt a little bit better. Everybody wants to feel like Superman every now and again. I get that. I totally understand. But I've never seen the need for it,
Right.
you know, and it's weird because it kind of feels like a flex, but I'm like, I don't have the symptoms. So you know, if I don't have the symptoms, I don't have a libido problem, like I don't have a reproductive issue, I don't have, you know, and so if I don't have the things that testosterone fixes, then I don't need testosterone. But don't get me wrong, you know, if you ask me again in 20 years, I might feel differently about it. I might be on metformin and a little bit of tea with some HCG mixed in there to kind of get the mix right.
Little cocktail.
Get the mix right. Get the mix right. Keep me feeling like I'm 35 when I'm 65.
Yeah.
Give that a shot. No problem. No, but I might be that guy in the future.
Yeah.
Or right now, sort of feeling real fresh out of my training, and I'm not there yet.
Well, so like, because there's a lot of men dealing with, they might not even know they're dealing with a low testosterone issue.
Yeah.
You know, you see a lot of guys, and you know, I sure see, like I was we were having lunch downtown. And I'll be people watching this. I like to know who's by me, walking past me. I see a lot of guys, man. and they were looking like they might have some low testosterone.
You want to know?
What are like the telltale signs that you might be suffering from low testosterone, or you should look into possibly getting your testosterone checked, because this is not something your GP is going to test you for ever unless you ask them to do it for you.
Absolutely. The number one sign is low libido or a lack of desire for sexual activity, especially in a man of reproductive age. All right. Don't get me wrong. There are lots of reasons why you can have low libido, but the number one sign of low testosterone is a diminished libido. It's not fatigue. It's not fatigue. It's not depression symptoms. It's not weight changes. It's a low libido. It is, and don't get me wrong, all that other stuff is part and parcel with it. But if your want to goes away, that's usually the canary in the coal mine.
Oh no, I'm good.
How many
Three of them things.
now? Yeah, now
Is it possible to want to? You still have that urge, but you just can't.
That's possible for a lot of guys. Yes. A lot of guys that really want to, but can't.
Exactly. So yes, the short answer to it is, of course, it's possible. It's possible for the how'd that saying go? The spirit to be willing, but the flesh is weak.
Yeah.
Yes, it's possible. And in that case, when that's happening, then we got to start looking. We don't look at testosterone right away. We see if there's a blood flow problem. We see if there's a diabetes problem. One of the number one causes of erectile dysfunction in men is undiagnosed diabetes.
No way.
Undiagnosed diabetes. And so it's the first thing that I test for when I see a man who is under the age of 60 who's coming to me for ED.
Type 2?
Type 2.
Yeah. So basically, if you're overweight, it pretty much... the solution is get healthy, bro.
You have to get healthy. And I want to
get healthy.
And look, man, it
cures everything.
We have the drugs to help you today. Uzo was telling you, we got the Ozempics, we got the Wegovy's, the Manjaros.
And keep in mind, Ozempic and Wegovy are the same thing.
Yeah.
They're both semaglutide, but that's neither here nor there.
They are or not?
They are.
Oh,
they
okay,
are
yeah,
the same drug. They're the same molecule, just packaged differently.
So there's drugs to help you today that are safe and healthy for you to take.
Or that can be taken in a safe way.
That can be taken in a safe way. However, the biggest problem is prevention. It's and that's one thing that kind of concerns me a little bit. You know, although I'm I'm not anti-pharma, like I said. However, what concerns me is are we just gonna have millions and millions and millions of people now, and just even of younger ages, just injecting themselves with drugs just to not be fat, when you can cut it from the root problem. It's hey, McDonald's, you're not allowed to serve your poison here no more, or we have a complete culture change. You know what I mean? And it does become criminal when you let your children become obese. You know, and we teach people how to eat nutrition, and we make healthy foods affordable.
Yeah. So what you're talking
about? You know
what
I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? What you're talking about is a public health initiative.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, in terms of re-educating people, and as far as the good folks at Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly are concerned, of course they hope everybody and their brother's brother starts shooting the stuff into their system. Yes, they want that. It's great for their stock price.
Multi-billionaires.
They're already multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
They're going to be trillionaires at that rate. You know, and so, but I think that what is happening now with the surge of these medications, with their surge in popularity and use, is that they're meeting a need. They're meeting people where they are. And so in the future, yes, you know, I think that we as me as a physician and somebody who wants to be seen as having an expertise in the space of metabolism and obesity, I have a responsibility to educate people about eating better, right? I recognize that. But I also think that, you know, in a better world, you know, that the availability of things that are bad for you would be restricted. And it's weird because, you know, it's do do you make McDonald's an 18 and up restaurant? You know,
Right.
do you, you know,
Let me see your ID.
So here,
do you get rid of the Happy Meal? Like, but yeah. So, but in truth, I see your point.
Yeah.
I really do, and I
Right,
concede the fact that in a better world we wouldn't have so much free access to things
Yeah.
that are bad for us.
So, you want to flip it? You want to flip it?
My bad, dude.
So here's my issue with all of that.
Sure.
Is that a few different things, if I may.
What?
So I drive by McDonald's every day.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't go.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not addicted to that type of food. If I may. If I don't say that, I get cut off.
No problem.
Okay, so I love hamburgers. Delicious.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not addicted.
Right.
Okay? So because that's the background that my dad comes from, and he's an addictive specialist and behavioral health specialist, I understand there's a huge addiction situation with these types of food for all the reasons we talked about before. So it's like, bad food is an addiction problem, and that's why people can't stop eating it because of the way it is and how it's made up. The sugar, the salt, the fat, you become addicted to that because your body reacts to it just like it does a drug, right? And the dopamine and all that stuff. But so you have these drugs that we have available, and they're great because some people are in such terrible condition. They need something that's extreme that can help them to regain health before it's too late, right? You know what I'm saying? But then they still have the problem up here, right? And so they still have the problem up here. So no matter how many drugs you give them, they're still gonna go and stop at McDonald's.
That's a good point.
You get,
That's a good
if
point.
I may, you get somebody who gets stomach bypass. They staple the stomach up. They make it small. They lose all this weight, and they bust that thing wide open, and it breaks inside of them because they're still shoveling down shit food into their body because they didn't fix this because they're still addicted. And so it's like America wants Band-Aids, they want quick fixes, they want Ozempic, they watch Kim Kardashian's ass go from here to here, you know what I'm saying? Because Ozempic, I don't want to work, I don't want to try, I just want the pill or the shot.
And I am so glad you said what you said, because the research actually shows that these drugs, and the reason why they are such game changers is because they change, for the people who it works for, they change the hardwiring up here.
How is that possible?
Because the hormone that they mimic is actually active in the brain. It promotes satiety in the brain. We see people who take Ozempic and Wegovy, and it changes their taste for sweets. What used to be sweet for them now is too sweet. What used to be salty for them now is too salty. So not only does their body punish them for overindulging in those macronutrients, but their brain tells them that I don't want as much anymore, and it is. So on a psychological level, it's changing them. On a neurological level, it's changing them. In fact, it's seen so much that semaglutide is being actually studied for alcohol addiction now. You know, so it's really interesting. And then the crazy thing about it is that those drugs mimic a surge in hormones, the same thing that happens when somebody gets a gastric bypass or sleeve. It mimics the same hormone surge, GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. That hormone surges in your system. It promotes increased satiety, increased fullness, increased feelings of fullness, decreased hunger, improved handling of sugar in your body, improved insulin response to when you eat. So you make more insulin when you need it. Your blood sugar doesn't go up as high. It comes down back to normal faster, and it doesn't go low. And so that is what makes this different from, you know, in the 90s when people were shoveling fen instead of Ozempic to get thin. When people were using Medifast and starving themselves for 3.5 weeks to lose 30 pounds and then going right back to what they were doing before. So what we're seeing now and what we will be seeing in the future is not just the quick fix. The quick fix has an opportunity to become a lifestyle. And so I'll
believe it when I see it, y'all.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. These things have not been popular and popularized long enough for us to see it. But I'm telling you right now, and the people who I have treated with Ozempic or medications like it for diabetes, who their diabetes is in some part related to their weight, because not all diabetes is related to obesity. You know, I can get into the 5 different types of diabetes at some point. That may be a conversation for another day.
Next podcast.
Exactly. But for those people whose diabetes is related to their weight, those medications, they lose 10, 15, 20, 30% of their body weight when they take it. And their diabetes goes away. And as long as their weight stays down, it never comes back. It never comes back. And so, yes, are there people who eat past their gastric bypass? Absolutely. Do 75% of people with a gastric bypass maintain more than 50% of the weight they lost? Yes, they do. And when they do, all of their adiposity-based chronic diseases, whether it's diabetes, whether it's arthritis, sleep apnea, all that stuff, it stays away. It goes away and never comes back. And so what sort of the new thing on the horizon is, because I get it. And because what you described to me, I think what you described right now, when, you know, not being addicted to the food, being able to put the fork down, being able to drive past the McDonald's, you know, it's because not all of us have the addiction, or not all of us have the propensity to want those things, or recognize that only but so much of it is good for us or bad for us. You know, it makes it easy to stigmatize the people who have the problem. All right. But in a sort of post GLP-1 agonist world, you know, in a post Mounjaro, post Ozempic world, what I think we're going to see is a change in a literal change in mentality for the people who are taking these medications. And it's sort of buried underneath the health spas and the quick fix places that are like, come to my health spa, get a shot of semaglutide. We'll give you a 20-minute conversation about eating right, and then we're going to send you on your way. Like, those, again, that's a grift. It is. Wholeheartedly, I completely concur. It is a grift. There is no need for somebody who actually needs these medications to have to go somewhere, pay $600 $500-$600 every week, or $500-$600 a month, to walk in every week, get a shot, get a talking to for 15 minutes, and go on their way. There's no need for that. You know, you may as well just pay that $600. You may as well give Novo that $600 and just get the medication yourself. All right. But ultimately, what we change, and what I've seen in the patients that I have who take these things, is that there's a mindset change. They are astounded by the fact that I'm not hungry anymore. I used to be hungry all the time. I used to not be able to put the fork down. I used to not be able to resist the urge to do that. And now I just don't feel like eating. You know, and the question, and the true question of it, and the true value of this is, what is the durability of that once you lose that weight? Once you don't have that insulin drive, that insulin excess to say, hey, you know what, got to eat. Once you're not feeling that ghrelin rise in your system saying, hey, let's go get something to eat. You know, when you feel full, and then when you lose that 15, 20, 30% of your body weight, you know, you're walking around at 200 pounds, now you're at 160, and then you're like, all right, what? So how do I feel? I feel great. All right, and then when I wean off of it, you know, what then happens? What is the durability of that? And I will tell you something very, very interesting. I have had a handful of patients who have been on these medications now for closing in on a year. And they've lost a ton of weight. It's fantastic. And we're weaning off, and they're not gaining it back. Because the change up here and the change in here, there's something durable about it. There's something that we're seeing here that's lasting. Doesn't mean 2 years later that they may be back to whatever their pre-Ozempic weight was. Maybe. But, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months into not being on it, they're keeping it off. You know, I saw a lady the other day. You know, she had diet-controlled diabetes for a good long while. I met her, all of a sudden it was uncontrolled by just her diet alone. She had gained about 25 pounds. Her diabetes got worse. We put her on it for 6 months. She lost that 25 pounds. Her diabetes went back to normal. And then she was like, it was too expensive. I couldn't afford it. I stopped taking it. Her weight has stayed flat. Her A1C has stayed. The way we measure her diabetes, her A1C has remained flat.
Yeah.
And she feels fine because when she was using it, something changed up here that allowed her to get back to being able to control her diabetes with her diet.
So I mean, I get the true test, and it's the way that we used to measure it in the quit smoking program that my dad created was like the 1 year point, right?
Yes.
It's like the 1 year mark. You're going back around. You're back in the real world. You're not on any more drugs or any of the things or whatever. And then now you have the stimulation of your environment.
Exactly.
Right. You go out to eat with your friends. Everybody's ordering burgers and fries. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, okay, that's going to be the true test.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, they had they had a very deeply ingrained habit system, right? They had a very deeply ingrained process of thinking and an emotional relationship with food.
Yes.
Right? And so that is what, I mean, okay, I guess it has an effect on it. What you're saying, it has an effect, but from a psychological self-talk standpoint, you didn't actually break that habit. But because of the what you're saying, like it's like taste aversion, or it's
literally
like,
neurological rewiring.
Right.
It is a neurological change. It is a change in the firing of your brain in the areas where satiety and fullness and hunger live.
Right.
That's the part that is super duper intriguing
That's
about
crazy,
all this stuff.
bro.
And
That's crazy.
it sounds like science fiction.
It does.
It does. It does. But and that's the part. And the part of it is if it becomes fact for the people who it works for, and this is the part where I always give a caveat where it's like it sounds amazing when you tell people about it, but it's not everybody.
Right.
It's not everybody who uses it that it happens for.
Right.
And I'm not even sure if it's the majority of people who use it that it's going to happen for.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is that I have examples where it's worked,
Right.
and I have examples where it hasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I've come to the conclusion, at least initially now, that it's a very cool thing to do, but it's not right for everybody. And when it's not right for you, you've got to find the thing that's right for them if they need the help.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah.
And we took
awesome.
and we took this conversation everywhere, man. Like, and then we got a little bit heated for a second, and then
excited.
I get passionate.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
passionate. You know what I mean? And then, but it's like, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, you're here to help people like who need help now.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not about where society failed us. It's not about where. What the problems going on. The problem is like you're dealing with obesity now. You're dealing with diabetes now. You're dealing with hypogonadism now. Right. We can't go back into your childhood and slap your parents' hand, put the fork down. Yeah. We're here now. Yeah. And as somebody who has an eating problem, you know, like a legitimate one, even though I look better than most, it's still a problem. I might look good, but it's still a problem. Is you get like desperate. You know what I mean? You get desperate, and you're like, I can't stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't stop. I try everything. Try to go on a diet, lose 10 pounds. As soon as, and then you get off the diet, you gain 15 pounds. And then after like doing this 3, 4, 5 times, you're like, I have to stop dieting because that's the only way I know how to not gain weight. You know what I mean? That's the only, as long as I don't diet, at least I'll be stuck here, but at least I won't get any fatter.
Right.
You know? And then, and they're like, our bodies are so a certain type of way where it's like, it's not just mindset where to quit smoking. You know, it's like, no, you have all these different hormones and all these different, you have your liver and your spleen and everything, and it's all creating hormones and chemicals, and it's going up to your brain, and then you diet. It's like, hey, just put the food down, just quit eating, and then you do that, and then you get hypoglycemic, and then you're like about to pass out, and then and you're like, I can't just stop eating, I can't diet.
Because if it was that easy, no one would be fat. If it was just as simple as putting the fork down, there'd be no such thing as obesity. And the thing that I like about what you said is that, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and there are literally metabolic set points in your body. You're believe it or not, you know, most, and I'll put it like this. I might be being a little dramatic, but most times your body treats rapid weight loss like you're dying. It treats it like you're dying. And it works very hard to slow down your metabolism and increase your hunger and increase the hormones that promote hunger and eating to help maintain your weight.
Right.
And so and it's been studied and shown over and over again. For every set amount of weight that you lose, your body's natural caloric, your body's resting caloric burn rate or your resting metabolic rate decreases.
Right.
But it decreases by something like 30 calories for every kilogram you lose.
So what about the Ozempics and
so-
stuff? Aren't they losing it pretty fast?
They are.
So are people going through really crazy discomfort in this process?
Most times, the biggest thing that most people feel is nausea, and then reactions to overindulgence in macronutrients. So if they eat too sweet or too starchy, they get nauseous. If they eat too greasy, they get diarrhea. If they eat too salty, they get constipated. It's a whole kind of thing. And most people feel something crazy like that, and that's sort of the thing that they feel with the rapidity of their weight loss. And it's similar to somebody who just had weight loss surgery, because the surge is very similar. They're just not hungry, and so they can feel all of those things, but generally, what the medication helps you do is fight the bounce back that your body triggers when you start losing weight. That's what the medication does. It helps you push past the hunger signaling. It helps you push past the lower metabolic rate, the lower metabolic burn rate. It helps you push past all those things to help promote and sustain the weight loss as long as you're using it. And so it's really, and so that's the part that kind of makes it really interesting. And it's also the reason why I try to be really, really careful about saying, these meds aren't right for everybody. There are certain people who have lots of different there are lots of different causes for obesity. I met a lady the other day. She was worried, I'm putting on weight. She has a cortisol problem. She doesn't have a fork problem. She doesn't have a hunger problem. She has a cortisol issue.
Hold on, but what does that mean? Because you have cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and then how does cortisol make you gain weight? And also, because I also know thyroid can make you gain and lose weight.
Yeah.
Does it do it by slowing down metabolism? Stress Is it stress eating? Because we all know it's calorie in and calorie out.
Right.
And so is it like if your thyroid and your cortisol and stuff, does it make you some people a furnace and then some people no burn? How does that work?
So the thyroid, loosely, it's a metabolic gland, sits here at the base of your neck and makes thyroid hormone. And thyroid hormone is essential for metabolic function of organs all over the body, your heart, your brain, your muscles, your bones. It has effects everywhere. And one of the ways people who gain weight because of an underactive thyroid, typically it happens because their metabolic rates are slowed and their body is in a position where energy storage becomes a must. And so you even think about it, people who are hypothyroid become sort of swollen and puffy everywhere. They kind of feel like they're running in mud. There's limited activation. There's issues with activation of activity. There's issues with clarity of thought. Then more severe cases, obviously.
Damn, man, I think I need to get my thyroid checked out.
Those are the kind of things that we see with a thyroid problem. And then when you have a cortisol problem, it's not just that you're gaining weight. The weight is gained in a very specific distribution, and it's coupled with a blood sugar problem. Because what cortisol is a steroid. It's a steroid made by your adrenal gland. It helps with stress response, but it also promotes the increase in blood sugar. And people who have a cortisol problem have a very specific distribution of their weight is very specifically distributed. They focus basically from their head to the bottom of their stomach. That's where the weight packs in. They get puffy behind the collarbone. They retain more weight around their abdomen than in their arms and legs. Maybe they bruise a little bit easier. Maybe they're more prone to illness or things like that. But that's where their weight is distributed. And slowing down the cortisol production for people who have it, whether it's a problem by stimulation from the brain or an overactive spot or spots on the adrenal glands, slowing that down fixes the issue. And so when we talk about multifactorial obesity, we really are talking about things that and studies have been done showing that there are maybe genetic markers that predispose people to carrying more weight, and some of those people can carry more weight without the adiposity-based chronic disease. The number on the scale is just going to be bigger for them. And then some people carry that extra weight, but they also have the propensity for heart disease. They also have the genetic predisposition for
they can't be fat like
for
this
diabetes.
person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can't carry that weight. the same, that person B can't carry that same weight
You know,
the same way person A can.
And I heard that. So like Asian people, like for Caucasian people, their number is like 20 or 25 or something until they start seeing health problems. And then I think Asian people is like once they get past like 18 or 20, that's when they start seeing their.
Oh,
health
you're
problems.
talking about body mass index, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, so the definitions for overweight and obesity are different in Western in the United States and Western and non-Southeast Southeast or East Asians. For Southeast and East Asians, the BMI cutoffs are actually 23 for being overweight and 27 is considered obese, whereas in the United States, and amongst Caucasians, African Americans, Hispanics, and things like that, it's 25 and 30.
We allow you, we give you a little wiggle room. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
you can be a little heftier over here. You know what I'm saying? Brought to you by McDonald's Corporation.
There you go. And so, and the reason why that is it's because you're right. We see adiposity-based chronic diseases more frequently in those Southeast Asian and East Asian populations at those lower levels. So so somebody who has whose background is from India, they may have a higher predisposition for diabetes at a BMI of 24 than somebody who was born and raised in San Diego, than a white dude born in San Diego.
Have you ever had any clients who suffer from all that? They got the cortisol, they got the thyroid, they got the obesity.
I got the obesity.
And they from Southeast Asia.
Not all of them. 2 out of 3, yeah. You get a few with 2 out of 3, but oftentimes.
And do you have to tackle each problem like individually, or do you like just tackle it globally or locally?
Well, yes is sort of the answer to both. Because if you have somebody with multiple endocrine problems, then short of genetic engineering, the only way to really treat somebody with multiple endocrine problems is to treat each endocrine problem individually. At least that's my understanding of it at this point. With time and experience, I may feel differently about it. But most times, those issues are related to some underlying genetic concern when they have multiple endocrine issues going on at the same time. There's a whole suite of diseases called autoimmune polyendocrine syndromes where there are genetic reasons why somebody will have autoimmune diabetes and autoimmune underactive thyroid or an adrenal insufficiency and this and that. And so there are a lot of those things that can be present there. It's not super common, but it can happen. But in terms of people who have like multiple, I'm obese and I'm obese because I have an underactive thyroid, and I'm obese because I have a cortisol problem, and I'm obese because I have a diabetes problem. Right. Oftentimes, especially when diabetes is concerned, oftentimes treating those component issues, the diabetes starts to get better. And then you see how much better that gets when you treat the component issues. And then if there's still residual disease left to treat, you treat that. But oftentimes that's where we kind of hone in, and we try to hone in and focus and say, okay, you know what, are we doing the most good? Because it's really easy to kind of slap a bunch of stuff on somebody and be like, okay, go on your way. Yeah. But I think that when we start looking for underlying causes and we start treating it, you would be surprised how little medicine you actually need when you get to the source.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. The biggest thing that I see there is the biggest area in my work right now where I see that is high blood pressure, where somebody is on 6 different medications for their blood pressure, and they also have to take a potassium supplement. And when it turns out they actually have a problem with another hormone in the adrenal gland called aldosterone, you treat that,
fixes everything.
Fixes everything.
Oh my God! Can you imagine that? 6 medications.
Yeah.
Hey, you could have just fixed that one little thing, and you would have been good.
You fix it, and it's. I literally have now that I'm thinking about it, a dozen people in the last couple of years who I've seen this with, and we fix that part, and literally you just see every time we come back and see them in a matter of months, it's like, oh, my blood pressure is low, so I stopped taking this. My blood pressure is low, so I stopped taking this. And little by little, we just knocking off everything. And whether it's because they had a surgery to fix the actual problem inside of the adrenal gland, or they started a medication that addresses the underlying problem. And so they went from taking 6 blood pressure medications and a potassium supplement to 1 med, and that's it.
All in one.
And I got to tell you, that's the kind of stuff that I get to do that makes me feel like I'm about 10 feet tall. I'm like, I figured it out. Thank you very much.
And we're gonna post that clip, and that one's gonna go viral.
What kind of advice would you give to the up and coming endocrinologist? Maybe someone who just entered school.
Up and coming endos.
They're thinking about being an endo. What kind of advice would you give these kids?
I would say that.
Well, they ain't kids because they gotta do so much
yeah,
school.
Exactly. So these adults who are only very slightly younger than I am, no, but in all seriousness, it's the same thing. Any aspiring physician, especially anybody who has a propensity or desire to be in endocrinology, there's never been a better time to sort of be in this field. Your opportunity to really fix stuff for people.
You could cuss.
I know, but I'm saying I'm trying to be professional. No, it's but the opportunity to really fix things for people has never been greater, and that capacity is only getting larger. And yes, it's some of it is medication, but we have an ever expanding understanding of human metabolism. We have an ever expanding understanding of how all of these endocrinologic diseases work. And we're getting to a point where the research is constantly expanding. Our ability to understand how to manipulate diet, exercise, and medication to really help people fix a variety of issues has never been greater. And so I always tell people, I always tell anybody who's coming up after me, and it's the advice that I try to give to myself and I try to do for myself, which is just try to stay up on stuff because the research is coming. And then if you have an opportunity to do the research yourself, go ahead and do that too, because we have, and I'm really blessed because right now the place I'm working at, diabetes and endocrine specialists here in San Diego, California, we have 3 locations, one in La Jolla, one in La Mesa out in East County, and another in Poway in North County. We take all comers, we treat all kinds, and we are really, really excited to get your business.
Yeah. I'm saying though.
But really, there's never been a more interesting time to be in this field.
Yeah.
And I think that with time, and I haven't even gotten into all the really cool ways that we get to treat diabetes now. And so with time and with education and with expanding research, we're really going to see, we're in the midst of a sea change in what we feel like permanent and lasting debility is from diabetes and what permanent and lasting debility looks like from obesity, and making those things, I think that in my professional lifetime, those things will become a thing of the past. I think those will become, these will become conditions that become much easier to treat, much easier to monitor, much simpler to manage. And because there is expanding technology and expanding opportunity and taking advantage of our addiction to our phones and taking advantage of the presence of wireless internet and Bluetooth capacity and all these other things. There is so much really super awesome technology and science and new medicine that's coming out that's really going to make my job a lot easier, but also a lot more fun and also a lot more gratifying, because I can say, hey, you know what? We have this laundry list of options for people, because I'm not going to lie, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, no, 20 years ago. Let me not be over dramatic. 20 years ago, if you came to the doctor with diabetes, there was like 6 things they could do for you.
Yeah.
Legit. There was like 6 things they could do for you, or they would just put you on a bunch of insulin and send you on your way. Now there's like 26 things that we can do for you.
Yeah.
And it's a variety of things. Maybe it is some insulin. Maybe it's not. Maybe we got to put a monitor on you that's going to help us track your blood sugar for 24/7. Help you, warn you if you're going high, warn you if you're going low. Prevent you from having severe consequences from the disease. I think it's going to be a thing that's going to be much more manageable. We're going to keep a lot of people out of the hospital. Going to do a lot of good for a lot of people, because I can't guarantee you that diabetes is going anywhere, but I can guarantee you that it's going to be a thing that even though more and more people may have it, more and more people are not going to suffer because of it. And so that, and on one hand, I'm like, hey, would I prefer cures and elimination of disease? Absolutely. But would I like to live in a world where people aren't dying because they have heart attacks because they have uncontrolled diabetes, or whether or not showing up to the hospital and having to have their legs chopped off because they have uncontrolled diabetes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, where they're not showing up to the hospital vomiting and nauseous and whatnot because they couldn't afford their insulin. They had to decide if they were going to pay their rent or buy their insulin. You know, I am excited to see that world and live in it.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that really kind of animate my day. And so,
I love it.
Uzo,
Love the
let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah.
yes. I am very notoriously not on social media. And actually, I guess if you are in fact interested in following me, I am a notorious Twitter lurker on I guess it's X now. Dr. Mba, that's DRDRMBA at on X. I am also developing my my Instagram page. So once that comes out, but right now it's DRUZO82. But we're going to be branding that according to our medical business here with diabetes and endocrine specialists. And my hope is that I will take Jay's advice and put myself on social media more.
Yeah.
But for now, the best way to really find us is to reach us at our business locations. And if you are interested in seeking the help of an endocrinologist, we are here in the San Diego area. We are generalists. We treat all, like I said, we take all kinds, we treat all kinds. And, whether it's anything ranging from diabetes to transgender health, we cover all bases. So,
Website, phone number?
Website,
yes.
phone number?
Website, phone number. So website is diaendo.com. And the phone number at our La Mesa location is 619-463-1293. And you can reach our main office in La Jolla at 858-622-7200. So either way, we're excited to see new people. We're excited to make sure that anyone who thinks they could use our help gets access to us.
Are you not on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Uzo Mba at LinkedIn. Just go ahead and hit me up there.
Yeah.
You see, I got to get better at this because I'm not on social media. I was like.